everyone, and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021, and this is episode 172. I'm Carol. I can be found on Ravelry as Knitsnpurls, and I am coming to you from my home in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, just a short jaunt east of Vancouver, where we are having a really crazy weather day. It's been a real mixed bag, just about everything you can think of. It started out overcast and then the sun came out and I thought we were in for kind of a sunny spring-like day. And then a little while ago it got super dark and just bucketed down with rain and hail. And then the sun came out again. We had blue sky and sunshine. And now the clouds have moved in again and they are looking a little bit ominous. So I have a feeling maybe the precipitation is not over and done with yet. I had hoped to take advantage of the sunshine to record because it is much better lighting than a cloudy sky, but we'll have to take what we get. I would like to, whether you are a new or a returning viewer, thank you for tuning in today. I know there are a gazillion other podcasts out there, so I am both humbled and grateful that you have chosen to spend some time with me. Speaking of gazillions, I have a gazillion things to talk about today, so I hope you're ready to kind of hunker down for a long episode. If you haven't already, make sure you grab yourself something to drink, whether hot or cold, depending on where you are and what time of day it is. No judging here. And yeah, I have one finished project and tons of works in progress, including 2 new projects that you have not seen before. Before I get into those, I'm going to just remind you that the Making Time for Me craft along is taking place in the Ravelry group. It is running, well, it's just kind of winding up now. It runs until this coming Sunday, after which time I will lock the thread and then I will announce some winners on the next episode. So the Making Time for Me craft along is just a thread I have set up in the Ravelry group where you can come and talk about anything you're working on. Any type of craft will do. Doesn't matter if it's a new project or an old project, whether it's a gift or something for yourself. It's really all about just finding some time, hopefully each day, to spend indulging in the craft that you love. So it's not too late to join. I have finally, I'm happy to say, gotten around to sewing up some project bags for prizes. So I've made 2 bags like this. They're good for like a single skein project, like a sock or a small shawl. I just couldn't resist this fabric in the store. To me, it just looked so spring-like, bright and cheerful. And if you are in the Northern Hemisphere, I know many of us are getting a little bit tired of winter and ready to see spring. It's got this kind of geometric print, this floral print, and they're both lined with this polka dot fabric. And then this one has a pocket that's made from this fabric. The other has fabric that matches the lining. I only had enough of this one for one pocket. So in addition to these 2 project bags, I am also going to award 2 patterns that are giftable on Ravelry. So like I say, I will announce those winners on the next episode. And speaking of winners, last week I put out the word that if anyone was interested in trying out these gently used 9-inch circular needles, to drop me a comment either on YouTube or on Ravelry. And I've taken all of those names, put them in a bowl and drew out one name, I should say, and that was May Jo. So, May, these are yours. Just if you are on Ravelry, please send me a private message on Ravelry with your full mailing details. That's the best way to get hold of me. If you are not on Ravelry, send an email to the email address on the screen here, and I will do my best to keep my eye out for your message. Has a greater chance of getting lost in the shuffle on my email, but either one works for me, and as soon as I hear from you, I will pop those in the mail. Okay, I'm going to take a quick sip of tea. Even though it's the beginning of the episode for you, I have been talking for a while of just struggling to get the beginning right, as so often happens. Somehow, once you get past a certain point, you can everything just flows, but sometimes those first few minutes are the toughest to record. It can set the tone for the whole episode. Before I start talking about my latest projects, I am wearing my Summer Tide shawl by Helen Stewart. Finished this a few months ago out of 2 colors of Earl Grey Fiber Company yarn. I know one was Desert Bloom. Yeah, this was Desert Bloom, and then this was Patina. And this is actually the first time I've worn it. I recently bought this t-shirt, and I was a little chilly before recording. I was looking around for something I could put on, and I remembered this. So I was really happy to find something to match it. And then also, when I came in here to set up for recording, I had this jar of mini skeins from Aberdeen Wool Company that I had recently got. It was sitting on my sewing table, and I thought, ooh, that will match too. I guess I'm just really into these colors lately. This yarn is for I think it's the Juniper and Pine shawl. I'll put the name of it down here in any case, but one of these days I'll actually get around to casting that on. Okay, finished project. Let me just slip them on. They're obviously not socks because I'm not slipping them on my feet and showing you. They are mittens. These are my Songbird mittens. The pattern is by Erica Huser, and I knit these in Blacker Yarns Swan, Falkland Islands 4-ply yarn. So the red is Diddle Dee Red, and unfortunately it's a discontinued color, and then the light gray is called Pebble. So these mittens have been on the go for a while. I knit the entire left mitten. I'm pretty sure it was the left one. Yes, I knit the whole left mitten last January, and then it didn't start the right mitten until this month, which is kind of crazy. It took me a whole year and a bit to finish them, but they are done, and I'm very happy with them. I have not done, I've done very few mittens in general, but I had never done like a color work mitten before, and I think they'll be nice and warm with the stranded color work because it's like 2 layers. The downside of knitting them a year apart is that see the lights changed and the clouds kind of, or the sun's gone behind a cloud there. Yeah, during that year the year that passed between me knitting my first mitten and knitting my second is my color work gauge loosened up because I've done more color work in the meantime. And so my right mitten is a little bit bigger than my left mitten. But honestly, when I wear them, I can't really tell. And I think since I blocked them, I think that they've both just kind of sprung back into, or they've lost some of their stretched outness. They've sprung back into shape. Does that make sense? The yarn has kind of sprung back, and so they feel even a little bit tighter than when I tried them on after I had just finished them. So that's a good thing. So yeah, I think they're beautiful. It's a lovely pattern. Very well written, very clear charts. Let's look how pretty, all the little details. One thing I did, because I knit my color work with one yarn in each hand, and because of the different patterns, I wanted the light gray to pop more on this side, and I wanted the red to pop more on this side. So on this side I carried my red yarn in my left hand, and on this hand I carried it in my right. And what I found really interesting about it is I would kind of switch up on those transitional parts that run in between the two patterns. And one thing I did notice is just the way that I knit. You can see here, this red is more predominant, and on this side it's the silver that's more predominant, and that's just oops, that way. It's just the nature of how I knit and how I carried the yarns, and how when they went from one needle to the other, just the tension. So it's not really noticeable unless I point it out. At least I don't think it's glaringly obvious, but it is something I noticed once I had finished. Anyway, enough said about those. Now I can wear them, so that's a good thing. Except I can feel on the tip of this one, I still haven't trimmed the yarns on it, because I can feel right at the tip of this mitten a long strand of yarn that needs to get snipped off. And I'm sure there are others too. All right, so happy to be done with those. I've continued to really enjoy knitting on my Zauberball socks. I've been calling them my anniversary party socks on Ravelry because they are knit from Zauberball Crazy in the colorway that translates to anniversary party, and that is color 2389. As you can see, it knits up like that in all those pretty colors. So there is sock number 1. Love. And so happy to get to this pink color. There is sock number 2. Now, these are knit from the top down, as you can see, just 2x2 rib, plain stockinette, and then I did a yarn over short row heel on them. And I was especially happy with how that turned out on this sock, because it's just all the blue really just was concentrated in this area, and I was hoping that something similar would happen with the second sock, and it did in a way. It's definitely, was happy to see that there was just yellow as one of the colors running through this whole area too. So while it's not quite as I don't know, that looks more intentional somehow. It's more subtle, the different color variations. It's a little bit less subtle, but I still think it's fine. Face it, that's going to be in my shoe anyway. So it looks like I have a little more yellow to work with, and then I'll be getting back to some greens and maybe even some pink again before the sock is finished. So yeah, just loving these, knitting them on a 2mm needle. These happen to be Hiya Sharps, and I think that's all I have to say about that. Feel free to ask questions. Best way to contact me is either private message on Ravelry or comment on YouTube, or comment in the Ravelry group on the episode thread, and I try my very best to answer all questions and respond in one way or another. Sometimes just a little smile or a thumbs up, but I do try, or a heart if you're on YouTube, but I do try and get back to everyone in some way. I do appreciate the messages very much. I have another pair of socks that I've been working on. They are the Curling Mist socks by Helen Stewart. And this is the first sock in the fourth Handmade Sock Society. So I finished the first one. And as I explained last week, the original pattern, the colorway for it was inspired by like a misty eucalyptus forest in Australia. But I don't live in Australia. I live in coastal rainforest in British Columbia, and we are more likely to have evergreen trees like cedars and Douglas fir and spruces. So I chose a colorway that was more reminiscent of the forest in my area and just because of these light parts, it's kind of the mist on the forest. So it's a very basic 2x2 rib sock that has just a 1x1 cable every so many rows. She did a ribbed heel flap this time, 2x2 rib at the cuff, so traditional heel and gusset rounded toe, so not a difficult sock at all. And then last night I thought of all of you who told me that when they heard the name of the pattern they thought of me and my curling, which I have not been doing this year. Our rink did open back in the fall. They sort of took a survey. If they were going to get enough participation, they decided that they would put the ice in and run it, because it's very expensive to keep the ice going. So at that time, both my husband and I decided that we were not going to curl this year. I was very confident, just from hearing everything that was going on and what the experts were predicting. I just did not think that we would get a full season in. And I also was kind of nervous about, at that time, not knowing how widespread COVID-19 would be in our area, and just didn't want to take the risk of contracting it. So as it turned out, they did have to end the season, and now they've taken the ice out. So even if something's to change between now and the end of the season, it won't change. However, having said that, there is a point to it. This week, we've started watching curling on TV. In Calgary, Alberta, they are holding over the next 2 months the Canadian Women's Championships called the Scotties. That's what's going on right now. That's followed by mixed doubles, and then it's the men's championship called the Briar, and then the men's World Championships is also going to be held there. So they have very strict rules. It's basically a bubble situation, so there's lots of testing going on, very strict regulations about who you can spend time with, but it means that there is at least some curling to watch. There are no spectators in person, like so many sports these days. But yeah, it's been kind of fun to be watching it. I hadn't really missed curling myself too much this year, but seeing it being played kind of makes me miss it a little bit, and I'm hoping things are more back to normal next year and I can get back to curling. But in the meantime, at least I can watch it on TV. So yes, for those of you who associated the curling of these with the curling of me, so I am at least watching it. And having said that, last night when we sat down to watch it, I pulled out my second curling mist sock and worked on that while watching curling. So they're a very, very long roundabout way of tying that in. So anyway, I worked on them a little bit this morning too, and I have that much done of the second sock. So because it's a good simple sock, but it's not that exciting, face it. 2x2 rib is not exciting at the best of times, and this is only broken up with a bit of cabling. So it's a good kind of sock to work on when you're watching something like that on TV, because I can pay attention to the game and not have to pay too much attention to my knitting. So it's just the right balance, right kind of project for that. So yeah, loving how those are coming out, and I don't want to jinx myself. Maybe I'll finish sock or pattern number 1 before pattern number 2 is released at the beginning of March. But I probably did just jinx myself saying that. All right, I have a little bit more of my perfect blend shawl done. Oh, if you could only see this, I have stuff like everywhere. I'm actually just going to lean over, put this over here. Fire up my iPad here and show you what perfect blend looks like, because I do not have a copy of it on pattern. So that is perfect blend. It is a asymmetrical triangular shawl that uses 12 different colors, and as you can see, there is different patterned sections that alternate with garter stitch sections. And so I had recently got a 12 mini skein set from Midnight Cravings Yarn Company. There's their logo. And it was based on Anne of Green Gables. And so 12 little mini skeins, and they represent, oh, there's my furnace picking one. The sun shines out again, so this scarf may not last the entire episode. There's the other 6. So the colorways are all themed on characters and incidents from Anne of Green Gables. Which I am reading again for the first time in a gazillion years. And I think I'm going to have to work the word gazillion somehow into this episode title. So I'm quite enjoying reading it. I'm almost finished. And I'm enjoying becoming reacquainted with the story and characters. I think when I showed it to you last week, I think I was maybe somewhere around here. Maybe around here, I can't remember. So you start out, you go colors 12 through 1. And then you go colors 1 through 6. Isn't that a neat pattern there? That one there. And then you start again, and there's that one. Then you start again at color 1 and work your whole way up to color 12. So you can see here I've got colors 1, 2, 3, 4. Just started color 5. This is another neat one with the crossed stitches. So it's fun. It's a fun shawl to work on. I like it because I could sort of do a section. Well, now they're getting longer, so it might change, but I could sort of sit down and do a section or 2 in an evening. And I like that you're always changing color and you're always changing patterns, so it does not get boring to work on. And I'm really excited to start seeing these early colors being worked into it down here. So that's been a fun project. But I've had to set it aside for a little while because of a new project that has a little bit more urgency to it, and I'll talk about that shortly. Oh yes, I am really excited to show you some progress on my longest night shawl by Lori Law. So if you've watched before, you know that I cast this shawl on just over 3 years ago on the winter solstice. It is being knit, I don't have the label here. It is woolly Wonka yarn. It's a merino and silk laceweight yarn called Solstice. So it's really pretty, different shades of blue, kind of a periwinkle tone overall to it. So I decided, as it was, I was kind of bringing it out every Christmas season and working on it a little bit, and then it would inevitably get put back into hibernation after a couple of weeks. And this year I decided to keep it out and to work on it for about an hour every morning. And it's been amazing how much I have been able to accomplish doing that. So I am now currently, I've currently worked my way through 132 row repeat of the second to last chart. You are supposed to do 3 of that chart and then do the final chart. But I have pretty well made up my mind that I'm only going to do 1 more repeat of that second to last chart and then the final chart. Partly because I'm worried about running out of yarn, because the skein weight was a little bit shorter than what it said it should be. Plus it's a really big shawl regardless, and so, you know, a big shawl's great, but it has to be practical too. So I am going to be putting this away for a little while I work on some other things, but I put it onto 2 long needles so that I could show it to you all spread out. So it's a triangular shawl, so you can see even without those 2 chart repeats that are coming up, it is already quite large. So the bulk of the shawl is this swirling snow pattern, which you've seen many, many times. And then it's transitioned into this snowflake pattern. Like all lace, unfortunately, it's hard to really show it off well without blocking. See if I can spread it out enough. You can see it involves some triangles, and then it has these twisted stitches, cables every so often too. Yeah, that's probably a good spot there. So I am really pleased with how much I've been able to get done on this since Christmas time, since the new year. And once I am finished a couple of other projects that are more urgent, I will go back to working on this every day. At least that's the plan. So in the meantime, I'm going to tuck it back into its project bag and keep it safe and out of the way. Okay, let me think what else. Okay, yeah, I'll show you the last of the projects you've already seen before I move on. So something I've been working on for the last couple of weeks, or last several weeks, I guess, is Love's Promise by Amanita. That's this cardigan here. Features sort of 3/4 length sleeves and a lace pattern that runs up each side seam, and it's an open front cardigan. Here's a close-up of the sleeve detail. So I am knitting this to possibly wear to our son's wedding at the end of April. I wanted to have a cover up just in case, because you never know what the weather is going to be like around here. And so I had this Madeline Tosh yarn in my stash, which matched my new dress really well. That's a pretty good indication. It's a little less red than is showing up on my screen, but I have learned that what I see and what you see is often different. Once I start editing, it often looks different, but it's pretty true. It's a little bit deeper. So that's Madeline Tosh Merino Light, and this is the Dahlia colorway. So I have been alternating skeins, and I have one more skein, and what I'm going to do is when I have some really good light, I am going to figure out which one looks the most like my remaining skein, and I'm going to break that one. And then I'm going to start subbing in. Now, what am I going to do? Hang on. Because I'm not with the sleeves. I'm going to end up saving some yarn from these other two balls, I think, for the sleeves. Sorry, I know I'm going a little bit. The trouble is I start thinking while I'm talking and then realizing it doesn't make sense. Somehow or other, I am going to be saving some yarn from these skeins that I'm using now for the sleeves. I'm trying to make it as homogeneous as possible, allowing for variations in the yarn, because as a hand-dyed yarn, you know, there's always going to be a little bit of difference between skeins, even if it's not always really noticeable to your eye as you're knitting it. But sometimes, especially photography, I find will often show up differences that you didn't really notice while you're working on it. It's a lot of talking. Here's what I have done so far. I am just about ready to increase again for the hips. So it's a top-down raglan. Here's the back, so you can see that a little bit better. And then once you break for the sleeves, you begin doing this lace pattern. See if I can find a good, that should show it pretty well, get the light on it. Anyway, this lace pattern runs down the side of the cardigan, and then it just has a very plain band that goes around the top, and I can't remember how it's finished on the bottom. Garter stitch maybe. So this fits really well. I'm very pleased because it doesn't close in the front. I can actually leave it on the 32-inch or 80 centimeter long circulars and try it on. So I've been doing that as I go to gauge the sizing and the length where I want the shaping to begin again. So I'm not going to see much there. I'll stand up so you can see that lace along the sides. And then if I turn around, hopefully you can see how nicely it fits across the back. I was really trying to avoid any big, sometimes raglans you end up with bunching in here if these raglan seams are set out a little bit too far, but I feel like it's going to fit well, fairly close fitting, which is what I wanted. So now I've given some thought. I was originally going to knit the sleeves full length because my dress sleeves are full length, but I really like the way the 3/4 length sleeves look, and I really like this finish on them. And so one thing I'm considering is shortening the sleeves of my dress and having them basically this length. And see how this top has these ties that give it some shirring here. I'm thinking of adding just a little piece of elastic along the top of the sleeve that will bring the sleeve of the dress kind of gathered a little bit like that. And then that would fit nicely under the cardigan sleeve and have it that length. I just think that's part of what's drawn me to this cardigan in the first place. And again, if it's at the end of April, our weather is just as likely to be really warm as it is to be really cool. And so I feel like the wool layer will keep me warm even if it's cooler outside and even if it's a 3/4 length sleeve. But if it turns out to be quite a warm day, then my dress won't be quite as warm if I have, you know, a shorter sleeve. So I haven't 100% made up my mind, but I'm probably 75% of the way there. The only thing is I don't want to wreck the dress, so I'm going to have to be very sure of myself before I do that. That's the only thing. So that's why I'm not 100% sold on it yet. Let me see. Okay, I have 2 new projects. When I'm just looking for one of them. When I finished the songbird mittens, I gave myself permission to cast on my Dogwood Blossoms cardigan, and I have been talking about this project for a long time. I've quite recently bought the yarn for it from Knitpicks. I'm going to make the cardigan version, but I'm making this colorway. This came out in December of 2010, and I remember when it came out really loving that pattern, but just not being in a position where I was ready to embark on such a color work heavy project. And over the years, they've re-released it in some different colorways. And even though some of them are nice, I've always gone back to that original. And so a few months ago, Knitpicks was having a sale, and I took advantage of it. And I saw that someone on Ravelry had listed all the colorway names for the Knitpicks palette yarn, which is what it's knit from. They had listed all the colorways for the original version, and I thought, if I buy the pattern, and even if I don't have the original charts, I'm sure I can figure it out by looking at different photos from Ravelry. And then when I got the pattern and saw just how difficult a task that was going to be, I contacted Knitpicks to see if, at the very least, if I could get a list of the different colorways that are used in each row, because they supply that with the pattern. And I thought, even if I knew which ones, then I could figure out which stitches in each of those rows was supposed to be knit with which yarn. But as it turned out, they actually sent me the entire pattern for the original colorways, including the charts, so I don't have to do any guesswork. I can just go ahead and do it. So I was so excited to cast this on. Just see where I'm going to put this. I'm actually going to take this off now. It's definitely warmer. And I don't know about you, but I know a lot of you are women around my age, and I am definitely finding that if you don't like the temperature, wait 5 minutes and it will change. It won't always change how you want it to. Sometimes you'll be too cold and sometimes you'll be too warm, but it will change. That's almost a guarantee. Anyway, I have my sleeves started. They're both up to the same point. So what I did, they do list the sleeves first in the pattern, and I thought that would be a good way to get used to the color work and the yarns and such. So I have cast on the sleeves first. Plus, if you're like me and often get stuck on the sleeves, they'll be done first, and then you can sort of do the fun part, which is the body. So what I decided to do, because my row gauge was a little bit less than the suggested gauge, I decided to provisionally cast on with the navy yarn, and I used Judy's Magic cast on, because when you do that, you have a whole row of stitches that you can slide onto waste yarn. and they're directly tied in. I have done the provisional cast-ons like a crochet cast-on, but you're always one stitch short that way, and sometimes it can be hard to pick them up. So this way I just slid my extra stitches onto waste yarn and I started working the sleeve, the pattern, right away. The downside of that is because I didn't have any ribbing on the bottom, my stitches were curling, my work was curling. So I decided to, after I had done some of the color work, I decided to add some ribbing also. So I picked up those, slipped those stitches back onto needles and worked about half of the ribbing before putting them stitches back onto waste yarn. You're supposed to do 20 rows of ribbing. Depending on my row gauge and how this sweater ends up fitting, I might want more or less of that. And so I decided to do 10 rows for now. And then when I'm ready, when the sleeve is done and I know how long I want the ribbing to be, then I can put these stitches back on the needles, join in new yarn, and then just work the ribbing for however long I want it to be. This yarn is all feltable, and after some trial and error and mulling it over, I decided to join in my yarns using the, well, they call it spit splicing method. And I know lots of people are grossed out by that. Some people call it wet splicing. Some people don't actually use saliva. Some people just will dip the yarn in a bit of water or coffee if it's handy or whatever. I don't actually spit on my hand. I just kind of lick my hand and roll the two ends. So you basically, you take your old color, and I do it about, I'll work till I'm finished the row, then I take out some of those stitches, and I will break off the, it's 2-ply yarn. So I'll separate the plies, and I will break one of them off about 1 inch from the end. Then I'll take my new color that's coming in, and I will do the same. Separate it, break off about 1 inch of it, and then I'll lay the two yarns overlapping about that inch. Like I say, lick my hand a little, and then roll those two ends in between my palms. That heat and friction and the moistness felts those ends together. And because the joins are done kind of at the side seam, and because they only really overlap for about 1 inch or so, when you change colors, like, you can't really see where you're joining in those colors. And the best part of it is you don't have a million ends going up your seam or joined, your end or beginning of round. There were a couple of suggestions on the pattern. One was to tie your ends together. So you would take one yarn and the other yarn and tie them after you're done. Or braid them, where you have a whole long of ends along your seam and you literally start at the top and braid in all these ends. And I didn't like either of those choices, so I decided to do it this way, and I'm happy with it. Because I did start out not doing this and ended up taking it out because I couldn't stand all the ends hanging down. What I am doing is occasionally you have some rows that just have one color, and then I'm just weaving in those ends, kind of knitting them in as I go. So occasionally I do have an end that I've knit into the thing, and then once the sweater's blocked, I will trim that more, so it's just a little bit showing. And those ends will kind of felt up in time anyway. So that's how I'm doing it. It's my sweater. It's gonna be washed before it's worn. So like I said, I know some people think that whole spit splicing is really gross. I don't know. If you've ever been a mom, you've licked your finger and rubbed a chocolate or peanut butter or something off your kid's face. Don't tell me you haven't done that. I don't think it's any different. So anyway, that I've really enjoyed. But again, putting it aside for now because I'm going to talk about my new project that is taking precedence right now. And I am so excited about it. So I was talking to my son's fiance, and we were talking about wedding things, and I was saying that I was knitting this sweater to wear with my dress because I wanted something to cover up. And I asked her if she had, you know, what style her dress was and if she had something to cover it up. And she got her dress secondhand, paid like $50 for it, and it came with a stole that matched the dress, but she needs to use some of the fabric from that stole to alter the dress. She needs to add a little bit down the back. So I asked her if she wanted me to make her like a little shawl to wear with her dress, and she was just thrilled with the idea. So here's the stole that comes with the dress. So it's an off-white material, and it has these pearls and crystals and silver embroidery on it. So that was the only thing. I was like, okay, hopefully I can find a yarn that's going to go with this, because it's, as you all know, if you've ever tried to match something that's white or off-white, there are numerous shades of white out there, and it's really hard to do. So I told her the first thing I'll do is look at the yarns I already have, and then I can go shopping if necessary to find a yarn. Well, lo and behold, you can see on there, look at that. Look how well that matches. In my stash, I had 2 skeins of this Laceweight yarn. It's called from Ornagi Filati. It's called Merino Oro. That's color 20, which they call white, which is actually, like you can see, an off-white. And I just couldn't believe I actually had a yarn that would match. In conversation with her, she decided that rather than have it knit singly and have a really sheer lightweight shawl, because it was for warmth, she preferred if I held the 2 strands together. So I started swatching with different needle sizes and different pattern. I found this floral pattern because her embroidery, she has some like flowers on it. Just trying to find something. She mentioned, oh, maybe you can find a lace that has flowers. So that was just from a Stitch Dictionary, just to get an idea. And I just tried several different needles. And then I also had some beads that I could try in there. I don't know if that's catching the light. That's like a crystal, silver lined crystal bead. I had these little pearl beads. Probably won't see that very well at all. Here. This is what I miss my true camera, because it could pick stuff up like that really well. Anyway, there's a little bead in here. There it is. But it's really small. And then I tried more in lace. So I tried several different needle sizes, blocked them out. Interestingly enough, once I'd blocked them, there really wasn't a huge difference in stitch count, and I don't think there was any difference in row count. So then, of course, well, then the next step, well, then I started looking for patterns. So I found a bunch of patterns, and I narrowed it down to 5 of them, and I sent them to her for her consideration. And in the meantime, I went to the bead store on Saturday, and I picked up some other beads. So I picked up some silver ones, and then some bigger pearl ones, and the pearl ones have they're like an off-white pearl. I'm trying to catch the light here. And then I had those silver lined crystal beads. So I knit up again just some lace swatch, a lace swatch, so then I could show her the fabric with the beads, and she could make a choice of which beads she wanted. So I was delighted. I was going to give her a call sometime on Sunday. I know she's really busy. She's doing a practicum for teaching right now, and I didn't want to disturb her and nag her about it. But I thought, oh, maybe on Sunday afternoon I'll give her a call, see if she's had a chance to look at these patterns. Well, she phoned me first Sunday morning and told me which pattern she liked the best, and I was so happy because it was the one I liked the best also. And it takes 2 colors of beads. So then she came over and took a look, and she decided on the pearl beads and the crystal beads because she thought the silver beads might show up more than she wanted. And unfortunately, in this light, the pearl beads are not showing up really well, but when they catch the light, they really do shine, and they're really pretty. It's just the lighting here. Well, there, that might give you a better idea. I know you can see them more now. So she chose the shawl that's called Affinity Lace Shawl. It's by Haley Sang Cedar, and it looks like this. Now it's designed to knit with either a combination of 2 strands of 2 different types of yarn, like a smooth and a mohair, for instance, or in a fingering weight yarn that's all the same, or any combination. So what I'm doing is holding 2 strands of the lace together. And so far I have this much done. So I cast it on Sunday. Once I heard from her, I did a little bit more figuring out, trying to figure out what the best size needle was to cast on. And yeah, so like, again, lace before it's blocked does not look so great because look how bumpy and lumpy and stuff, but that gives you an idea of how nicely and smoothly it's going to block out. It's very soft. It's 100% merino. It feels really nice. So that's the beginning of it. And again, not sure if you can catch the light. There's a row of pearls all in here and down in here, and then at various points in the pattern. Well, I don't know how much you can see that. There, you can see the beads a little bit more there. Yeah, there, you can see the pearl beads there. And then that's how it looks next to the fabric. So pleased with how that matched it up. It looks good in every light except when she came over on Sunday. We were out in the front, just under the front porch covering, and that was the only place. I mean, it just that it didn't look the same. Like in every light, it it looks like it's the same color, and then in that one it didn't, but it didn't look like it didn't match, it just didn't look identical. And we're hoping that it's going to be sunny anyway, and then that sunshine will catch all the light in the beads and sparkle. But and then again, maybe she's not even going to need one, but at least if it's a little chilly, she has something to wrap around her shoulders and warm her a little bit, because her dress is strapless. So this, oh, it's so much fun. I love doing the beading, and I just can't wait to see it all finished and blocked, and it's going to be lovely. So that is on obviously a timeline, as is my Love's Promise cardigan. So those are the things that are going to get the most attention over the next little while till those are done. Okay, have I talked enough yet? I told you it was going to be a long one. Oh my goodness, it's almost an hour now. And my tea's cold. So this is Carol from the future butting in here to tell you that while I was editing the episode, I realized I forgot to tell you about this week's acquisitions. So that's why the light looks a little different. It's about 6:30 in the evening now. So recently, Fiber Nymph Dye Works was clearing out several lots of their rich top base, and I scored 4 skeins of the soot colorway for a really good price. This is the fingering weight version. It's an 80% Romney, 20% Falkland non-superwash wool blend. And my thoughts behind buying this, besides the fact that it matches my hair really well in this light, is that I thought it would go well with this skein of warm honey that I had recently purchased. As much as I love this color, I don't think it flatters me in any light. But I thought if I paired it with a colorway that did, I could use them together in a garment. Around the same time that I bought this, I saw on the Sweet Georgia Yarns podcast, Taking Back Fridays, that Felicia had suggested this color combination as a possible pairing for one of the projects that she was promoting. And then just, I think it was last night or yesterday, I got a newsletter from Woodhouse Knits, which is Jennifer Wood, and she gave us a sneak preview of her next design, which is a colorwork sweater in these colors. A lot of people like to call it Grello, with the gray and the yellow. So whether or not I knit that particular sweater or not, I was pleased to receive this and see that it does go really well with this warm honey colorway. And I do look forward to knitting it up into a sweater in the future. So I'm going to go back to editing the podcast and having some dinner. So here you go with the rest of the episode as recorded previously. So weather wasn't just crazy here today. If you live in North America, weather has been crazy everywhere. And man, those cold temperatures, I can't believe how far south and how widespread they were throughout the United States. And of course, heard a lot about Texas and how hard Texas was hit. And I know some of you viewers that I've gotten to know over the years live in Texas, so I hope that you are all okay, that you didn't have too much difficulty throughout power outages or water outages. I don't even think water is back on everywhere, and I know there's boiling water advisories and things like that. And I know it wasn't just Texas. I know other places were hard hit too. So I hope you're all warmer, and I hope things can soon get back to normal for you. I think it was last time I recorded and it was really cold and windy here, and I think it was that night actually that we had a pipe freeze on us. And we had, if you've watched since the beginning, just over 4 years ago when I first started recording that December we'd had a really cold spell, and we had in our downstairs bathroom had the um, cold water tap hose pop off because it froze and flooded our basement. And so this time around, Cameron was watching TV in the downstairs family room, and he went to get a drink of water, turned on the cold water tap in the bathroom, and it didn't come on. The hot water was still running, and the water in the toilet, it was still fine. So there was just this short stretch from basically where it split from where the toilet comes out and then to where it goes into the cold water tap. Just a really short area of wall, but it was enough to be frozen in the cold water tap. So we can't access it. It's behind the wall, and most of it's, or a good part of it, is behind the bathroom cabinet. So we weren't sure what to do. Googled some stuff, ended up getting a hair dryer and trying to heat it through the wall. That wasn't working. And then I realized how hot, because there's one area to the other side of the toilet where the pipes are showing along the wall. And they're only about maybe an inch apart, the hot and cold water pipes. And I could tell, like, the hot water pipe was getting really hot. When we were running hot water, you could feel it. And so I just got the idea of, let's just let the hot water tap run for a while, and maybe it will be warm enough to thaw the cold water tap that's close to it behind the wall in that stretch where we couldn't reach. And lo and behold, I was within an hour. We just kept it going, and then and we only had it going a little bit, so we kept checking it, and sure enough, at some point turned on the cold water. Well, actually, I came into the bathroom. We had opened up the cupboards to we'd opened up the doors to the cupboard, and we had closed the bathroom door to let as much heat kind of get at the pipe area as possible. And and of course this happened like 10 o'clock at night or some ridiculous time, and Cameron had to get up for work the next morning, and I had to get up for something the next morning, and it was, are we going to be doing this all night? So he'd gone to bed, and I was reading for a while just to stay up. So every so often I would go down and look at it. And one time I opened up the bathroom door, and I could see the water was running more forcefully than it had before. And sure enough, the cold water was running. So then we just let it run a little bit over the course of that night and the next day until it warmed up. So thankfully we didn't have any cracked pipes and lines and stuff again and have a disaster, because we've dealt with it and it is no fun. And so I definitely can relate to some of you out there who may have had frozen pipes and water damage. It is like the worst thing. So yeah, we had our wintry weather for a little while. Those cold temperatures and winds for a few days, and then as it warmed up, we did get a little bit of snow. And since then, it's just still been kind of chilly out there. There's snow on the mountains, and you definitely feel it down here in the valley. And like I said, we had hail today, so but it's, spring is coming. It's just not quite here yet. And when it's a little bit sunny, you kind of get a glimpse of what it's going to be. But even when it's sunny out there, it's still a little bit chilly. So we've had I was thinking about recording late last week. As I had told you last episode, I may not, because it was a short week, because we had the Family Day weekend. A week ago Monday was Family Day, was a holiday. So I sort of thought I may not record, and then I had lots to show you, and I thought I was going to. But then at 7:30 Thursday morning, Cameron phoned me, woke me up, and said he had just gotten a call from the guy from the roofing company, and they'd had an opening, and yes, it was short notice, but could they come and start working on our roof in like within the hour? So we said yes because we don't know, when else we're going to get fit into the schedule. So why not? So the guys arrived soon after that, and the first day they took all the old shingles off, and then they were there bright and early the next morning and got the main part of the roof done. And then they came back yesterday morning and finished. We have like a lower section of roof just outside this bedroom and the one next to it. And they finished it off yesterday morning. So we are getting gutters, drain pipes replaced, but that'll come a little bit later. So we were happy to have that done. They had put a waterproof barrier down. That was good because the first night it did rain, and then it did rain Sunday night quite hard. So this little roof was completely bare except for that membrane, but everything stayed dry. And now we have our new roof. We're not going to have to worry about shingles blowing off and wind damage and stuff for a very long time. But we will be out of this house by the time it needs a new roof again. So that feels good. And then yesterday afternoon, I got a call from the guy who is building our shed to say, can I come and put your shed up on Wednesday? So absolutely you can. So tomorrow he's arriving bright and early, before 8 o'clock, and he'll bring the shed in pieces and put it together here. And then we have shingles from our roofing company that will match. So the colors of the shed will match the colors of the house. It'll all go together really nicely. So we're very excited to have those two big projects sort of being taken care of within a week's time. So that'll be good. So come spring, I'm going to have to do some touch-up painting on our patio area, and then give the shed a second coat, because he'll put one coat on, and then once it's all put together, of course there'll be nail holes and things like that, and so I'll give it a second coat when it's better weather out. So very exciting, all that around here. Very noisy though. Definitely on Thursday and Friday for pretty well the whole day, because I don't think they left here till about 5:30 on Friday. They were trying to get the whole roof done and they just couldn't. But it was so noisy. Just felt like there were, was a herd of elephants on the roof like all day. But what short-term pain for long-term gain. So we're happy to have the roof done. I'm just looking at my notes here. Oh yeah, it is Cameron's 60th birthday on Saturday. Of course, COVID-19, can't have a big party or anything. But we've started doing, now we did it in December and January, and we're going to keep doing, at least for the foreseeable future, a Zoom call with Cameron's brothers and their wives the last Saturday of every month. And so it happens to land on his birthday this year. So we'll do a Zoom call with them. We do it at 5 o'clock on Saturdays. And then we are going to go out for dinner for his birthday. And we have not gone out for dinner like inside a restaurant since before COVID. We were supposed to go for my birthday back last March, and then our state of emergency or whatever it was declared that day, and we were not able to go to a restaurant for my birthday last year. And we decided that we were gonna go for it. Cases have leveled out here in BC. They're still high. There's still like 400 to 500 cases a day province-wide, and our health region is the hardest hit. So It's definitely still out there. But our son and his fiance went to this particular restaurant. It's a new restaurant in town. They went for her birthday, and they said it was really well set up with the plexiglass screens and social distancing and all of those precautions. So we decided we're going to go for it and go and have a really nice dinner for his birthday. So it's like a seafood restaurant, which that's his favorite. He loves seafood. So yeah, kind of excited. Gonna put a dress on, get dressed up, and go somewhere. I mean, we just have not had the opportunity to do that in so long. So it's gonna feel kind of fun. Put on some high heels and a dress and go out for dinner. And then I think with our kids, we'll arrange a time to do like a Zoom call with all of them too. Because unfortunately, we're still not allowed to gather with people outside our own household, and really we haven't been doing that anyway, other than the odd, driveway visit with masks on, or front porch with masks on. We're still being very cautious with social distancing and wearing masks, even with our kids. So it's too bad. It's a big year, 60, but it is what it is. And, my family and I, we've all sort of talked about the big party we're all going to have when it's all over, and just enjoy one big birthday celebration eventually. But for now, we'll just keep it small. I don't know about you. If you're tired of listening, I'm tired of talking. So I am going to say goodbye now. You'll be happy to hear. You can hear my voice is rather hoarse, and I need something other than cold tea to soothe it. So I did not prepare anything special for something good this week, but probably the highlight of my week is starting to knit on that wedding shawl. I am really thrilled about just being able to do this for her, and I think it's just going to be so pretty, and I love the pattern. I'm enjoying doing the beading, so that's probably the highlight of my week so far. All right, I hope you are all well. I hope you are all warm and dry and safe and healthy. Take care. I'm going to try, my aim now is to try and record midweek, Tuesday or Wednesday going forward. So today's recording sets me up well for that. So unless, again, something unforeseen happens, you can look for an episode sort of mid next week. In the meantime, by all means, drop by the Ravelry group and take part in what's left of the Making Time for Me craft along. I had thrown out the idea last episode about possibly doing an Anne of Green Gables themed knit along or craft along. I can't remember if I already mentioned this earlier in the episode. I didn't really hear any feedback from that, and honestly, with now having my attention focused on the wedding shawl and my wedding cardigan, it's probably just as well to do without a knit along or make along for the time being. So if you want to get in on what's left of the most recent one. Thank you also to everyone who is taking part in it. It's so fun just to see. Every time I go into Ravelry, there's new posts, and I just love seeing what everyone's making, and definitely adding to my favorites on the patterns on Ravelry for future consideration. There's lots of inspiration there. So thanks for all of that participation. Okay, that is it. I will hopefully see you next week. Take care until then, and thank you as always for watching. Bye for now.